Hi, my name is Michelle Cen, and I work at True North Health Center. I primarily focus on patient education and support there, and I'm currently studying to become a mental health therapist. I'm specifically inspired by Dr. Doug Lisle, co-author of The Pleasure Trap, because I believe that a lot of us know what to do, but to actually implement that is another story. I first went vegan in 2017. This was when I was a freshman at Stanford, and I noticed that my college roommate had the book How Not to Die on his bookshelf. That's by Dr. Michael Greger. I read it, not expecting it to be a book that would change my life forever, and it truly did. He's not vegan, by the way, but I turned vegan.
Greger's not?
My college roommate is not vegan, but I turned vegan after reading that book.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the California Bay Area.
The book was all it took.
The book was all it took. That rhymes. I like that. The book was really all it took. For me, see, I don't think I have that caring of a soul, so it wasn't the animals that did it. And you know, the planet is cool too, but I like the taste of meat too much. However, that book, I read it and it told me about how eating plants could help me lower my risk for cancer, for diabetes, for so many lifestyle diseases. And it opened my eyes to the fact that we don't have to suffer from these as we age. So I was lucky enough that at the ripe old age of 18, I discovered this, and I feel so blessed because I think it has set me on the right path. And since then, I also have been insufferable in a sense because I can't stop telling people to eat plants. I truly think it's that simple.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Now, do you think you were primed up for this at all prior to doing this?
No, I don't think I was primed up for this at all. In fact, I was raised up in a family which ate an entirely omnivorous diet. And I actually struggle with maintaining enough weight. So my doctors would tell me to drink lots of dairy, to eat tons of meat. At one point, even pretty sure I did keto. So I've been through the whole gamut of diets. And when I told my parents that I wanted to go vegan, they said, Michelle, you're gonna die. like you're gonna become a string bean. And I was fearful because I also was afraid of, well, I heard that vegans have lots of nutrient deficiencies. I heard it's really hard to be vegan. There were so many myths that I bought into, and it was only through reading this book, How Not to Die, that I began to see how actually choosing to become vegan could become a healthful step in my life and could perhaps actually make me a stronger human being. Now, this was before the Game Changers came out, so I had no idea that vegan athletes could actually be really strong too. And to my amazement, when I went on this vegan diet, I found that a lot of my allergies cleared up, my breathing became easier, my skin cleared up more, my energy just tripled, it felt like. And as you can imagine, I started spouting off to all my friends saying this is something to try.
And you did mention thinking, nutrient deficiencies and stuff like that. Did you ever think, there's no way I could go vegan?
I was the person who made fun of my vegetarian friends. So a lot of my friends, being smarter than me, because I like to surround myself with smarter people, they were vegetarian for environmental reasons, for animal ethics, for health, and I would say to them, are you sure you're where do you get your protein? I was the person asking them where they get their protein. So I was the annoying person who's judging them, and now, you know what, I'm that annoying person, oops. But it was, I was bad, I'm sorry. I'm repenting now through my career choice of promoting plants.
Yeah, wow. And you have probably the coolest job ever, I imagine. I mean, True North, that's got to be an awesome place. I haven't been there, but what's that like?
True North Health Center is a paradise. It is a wonderful, wonderful place. And first of all, there's this misconception that people only go there to water fast for 40 days and starve. That is not what people do. At True North, a lot of people do shorter water fasts. They also juice fast, and some people will just eat the healthy, whole plant food, salt, oil, sugar-free diet and get healthy just off that, get off their medications that they've had for life, reverse autoimmune disease. A lot of people are even seeing amazing results for cancer. It's truly incredible, the kinds of incurable conditions that people come in with. And we also like to call True North the last resort because people go through McDougall, people go through other programs, and at True North, the buck stops there because we have the most clean diet you can possibly imagine, where we really remove everything and we give the body a chance to heal itself. I feel like True North is a paradise because I see people get well every single day, and that's why I wake up every day with a smile, and I feel like I have the luckiest job in the world to work with patients who are highly motivated to make themselves better, and we truly see them get better. I see people come in on walkers, wheelchairs, they have canes, and when they come out, they are running out, walking out, because they no longer need those devices to assist them. There was a woman who came into True North without eyesight, and she came out with eyesight.
Wow. I guess diabetic retinopathy?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the number of times people have told me, I was on day 20 of my fast, I noticed that my mysterious moles disappeared or my scars have healed up. It's endless. And people even get off their glasses because their vision improves during their fast. And it's not just temporary. After the fast years later, they still have the improved vision.
Wow.
So we are seeing things which are truly unheard of in the common medical system. And these patients who follow up with them and years later, they're still pain-free, arthritis-free, inflammation-free. It is the wonderland. True North has been in operation for 39 years at this point, and all of the 25,000 plus patients who've walked in have walked out. That's not something a lot of places health centers can say.
Literally all?
Literally, as in never had a fatality, a death or anything.
Never?
Never. And we take very sick people. Again, we are the last resort. People come to us where they've been through conventional medicine, alternative medicine. They throw their hands up and say, at this point, I might as well try fasting.
Let's backtrack. Now, you go vegan because you read How Not to Die. What changed after that?
What changed was my diet and also my perspective on life. Before reading that, being a little obnoxious of a child, I just assumed that my health would just be, crisp, that I'm in my prime. My parents are relatively healthy, so I thought, okay, I can just avoid all these diseases. But I could see a lot of my other friends already starting to experience some health issues and their families. And I have a lot of friends decades older than me who I would see continue to struggle too, not just with physical issues, but also mental issues. I believe it's all interlinked. And if somebody is not feeling well physically, they're also going to suffer from anxiety, depression, other mental disorders. For me personally, going vegan made me feel so much better in so many ways that I even took a leave from college to go to Gentle World, which is a vegan nonprofit organization with a location in Hawaii and one in New Zealand. I spent 6 months there, living there, learning how to grow veganic vegetables, which is different from using animal products, which are often used as manure. I learned how to basically run this whole zero waste facility, and that's where Dr. Michael Clapper trained before, by the way. It was just an amazing immersive experience. That was in 2018. That was how much this lifestyle captured me. And I came back to college, getting involved in all things I could. I got involved in our vegan groups. I got involved in trying to get Dr. Michael Clapper to speak to the Stanford medical students. Even was crazy enough to create my own independent study course on food and nutrition and how do we promote this whole plant food way of eating, because I just wanted to study this all the time. It was my obsession. And I was a research assistant in Stanford's dining hall, helping promote plant-based choices there. We figured out how if we name foods with really creative titles like twisty, tango, citrusy, carrots, people are more likely to choose it than if we just call them carrots. So modifications like that have been so powerful in helping promote plant-based choices in the world. I also would go to every plant-based potluck I could find in the Bay Area. I dragged my parents there too, so I helped introduce them to eating more plants. At the same time I was doing all this advocacy, I felt like I lived a kind of double life because growing up in the Bay Area, we're all cultivated to become technology geeks, basically. All my friends are engineers, and I myself graduated with a degree called Science, Technology, and Society. I felt like going to the tech industry was just the thing to do. It's just the automatic way to make lots of money and make an impact in the world. And I did that. And I even interned at places like Uber, their Uber Eats division, so I still made it food related, but I didn't feel very fulfilled. I didn't feel like I had connection with people, and all my spare time it was all about plant-based stuff. So I actually went to True North for a fast of my own in 2022, the beginning of, and that I went to because I myself have this own condition. It's called accommodative spasm. It's basically a muscle spasm in the ciliary muscle of the eye, which focuses it, and I've had it since I was 15. It basically causes like chronic pain, migraines. It was so bad in high school that my parents wanted me to drop out because I was basically non-functional. College was also extremely difficult to get through. I never thought I could even go to college. And I still deal with it to this day and have been through every treatment imaginable. And that's why I eventually came to fasting as maybe a way. And I could only fast for 7 days, so you're not gonna get super miracles out of that, but it was still such an amazing experience. I advocate that everybody at least one time in their life get in some fast because it's a physical cleanse and a mental cleanse. I feel like it changes people on a whole nother level beyond just going vegan.
Did it help with your condition?
You know what? I think a lot of my condition might be due to stress. Not being able to work during the fast was helpful. It didn't really resolve it, but I'd say it got rid of other stuff. Like I feel like I had some digestive issues and skin rashes, which faded during the fast. My brain, I tell everyone this, my brain is like 3 hamster wheels running at once. And during the fast was the first time in my whole life where I experienced what it was like to be at peace and to not feel like I always had to do something. In fact, even listening to music was too stimulating. I just wanted to lay there in bed and just be. I wanted to be a human being instead of a human doing. So it was a profound moment for me. And that kind of feeling I tried to achieve through, say, meditation, but I haven't been able to capture it since. It was truly transformative.
When you were diet searching through all these different diets prior to going vegan, were you doing that for that condition or were you doing that for some other reason?
I was doing that for other reasons. So I mentioned I had a lot of allergies, and so a lot of foods are giving me bad reactions. And I started to look up, like, why do I feel like falling asleep after every meal? And naturally, Dr. Google told me, well, you could try keto because carbs are bad for you, rice is the devil. And so I listened to that, and I went on those crazy diets. And you know what happened? I lost a lot of weight. I actually lost too much weight, and I became very ill. And that's when I had to go back to the doctors, and they said, Michelle, to put your weight back on, we need to get you drinking milk at least 3 glasses a day, dairy, whole fat milk. We need you to have meat with every meal. And that was what I was on for a long time. And it made me feel terrible, by the way, being on that much dairy. I'm Chinese. Most of us are lactose intolerant. I'm definitely lactose intolerant, but they were forcing this stuff down my throat. I felt horrendous all the time. Yet I was told by my nutritionist, by my doctors, that this was the way to go. And so to follow the instruction of Dr. Michael Greger to remove oil and to eat more plants felt like treason in a way. And again, it made me very nervous because I knew it would concern my family, it would concern my friends, but I felt like I had to do it. And I'm so glad I experimented with it and found out this is a better way to live.
Could you be with somebody who isn't vegan?
Absolutely. The first thing I tell people, be romantically. Yes. In fact, the first thing I tell people when I was dating, the first thing I would tell them was, look, I'm vegan, but you eat whatever you want. Because I respect autonomy. And I myself felt like my own autonomy was violated when I was told very forcefully that you have to eat the meat, you have to eat this kind of diet. And I never want to make anyone feel like I'm infringing upon their own individual right to their diet. It's a very personal choice. So everyone I've told, just eat whatever you want. I tell my friends, you can eat a steak in front of me. You eating a steak in front of me makes me feel no differently about you. It's not about your food choices. I don't think your food choices reflect your own integrity and your own self. I'm really lucky that my fiance right now is somebody who has chosen to eat this way, but it's not because I pushed him. It's because he saw how eating this way might make him feel better. We watched The Game Changers, and he's really into playing squash. He's very good at it. And he realizes that, hey, if I eat more beets and dark green leafies, that's going to give me more nitric oxide. I'm going to be able to endure more. So it was just his own choice, and he feels better because of that. But I think the last thing we vegans want to do is to make it seem like we're forcing our way of eating down everyone's throats. That just repels people. I tell everybody, because I lecture at True North too, I tell them this quote by Rip Esselstyn, which is, be a lighthouse, not a tugboat. We cannot force people to do what we want. Instead, if we just set the personal example and live as whole human beings with integrity, with love, then people will be attracted to us, and that's how we get them. Along with making really tasty vegan food, of course, without telling them it's vegan when we serve it to them.
Wow. Do you tiptoe around the word vegan and try to use plant-based or anything like that?
I don't actually. And that's because I feel that the word plant-based allows too much margin for error, too many other products to creep in. Plant-based, what does that even mean these days? In fact, I often wish that products were more forthright with using the word vegan rather than plant-based, because plant-based, again, does that mean cheese? Can you have dairy, eggs? We don't know. It's very vague. And When I was 16, I was addicted to the Engine 2 line of foods by Rip Esselstyn, especially his breakfast cereals at Whole Foods. And I would love reading the back of those cereal boxes, and they would tell the story of how Rip saved his fire brigade, the Engine 2 brigade, by eating this plant-based way. And they use the word plant-based probably because that's how it's going to appeal to more people. But I almost wish they had used the word vegan, because I didn't understand when I read that word plant-based at 16 that what he really was talking about was a plant-predominant diet, free of dairy, free of eggs, free of butter. That could have shaped my diet choices differently earlier on.
Now, as far as the ethical component, it doesn't sound like you really go there.
I didn't go there until later. So I've met a lot of people, especially at True North, who are this way. We came to the diet for health, and then slowly over the years, we started to wake up to what we were putting on our plates. A huge part of the ethical component came when I went to Gentle World in 2018 to stay there for 6 months, because they are very driven to promote animal rights. And that's when I realized that there was cognitive dissonance happening when I was eating meat and loving pets and loving humans. That was not quite right. And I also began to understand speciesism, how we feel like it's okay to eat pigs and cows, but we think that dogs and cats are not cool. Where are we drawing these arbitrary lines? I began to also get more disgusted as I watched those documentaries that we talk about, like Cowspiracy, and realized Dominion, Earthlings, which were truly appalling, to realize that all this suffering had been swept under the rug. And I challenge anybody who eats meat to try to slaughter those animals yourselves. Just try, even just killing one chicken. Can you do it? Can you hold that knife and do it? I can't.
Now, earlier you said something, for clarification here, about you don't think what people eat reflects their integrity. But now you're talking about cognitive dissonance.
Yes, so I think the difference is, I think a lot of people like me growing up, we don't have bad intentions when we eat meat, but we were raised this way. I think human beings, we are just trying to do what's good in the world, and many of us who choose to continue to consume animal products simply haven't been educated about the realities of animal agriculture, or just the amount of tremendous suffering that happens in the world in slaughterhouses. They don't know about that. And if they truly knew about that, they would choose differently. I see the lack of veganism in the world as an information problem, not as a problem with the human beings themselves.
I guess the fact that somebody might be eating animals and not wanting to hurt them, that cognitive dissonance doesn't reflect their integrity in your mind because they haven't been educated.
Right, they just don't know enough. I didn't know enough. It took me, I was the vegan basher. I was the one saying, where do you get your protein? Because I didn't know. I mean, sure, I'm a compassionate human being, but I had no idea just the extent of how they keep these animals in these cramped cages, how milk is so contaminated with pus and feces because the animals are literally kept in these confines. It's horrendous. I truly did not eat burgers thinking I was contributing to violence in the world, but now I understand that more, and I'm grateful for it. And I remember even back in high school in my AP rhetoric class, which is basically philosophy, we read the work of Peter Singer, and he advocated about not eating animals on ethical grounds. And at the time, it didn't really click with me because I like my burgers. I like my In-N-Out burgers. It really took me to for me personally, it took me to first stop eating animal products to begin to develop that distance that allowed me to understand what I was truly putting into my body. And yeah, as a quick anecdote, at True North, one patient who came was actually a USDA meat inspector. So her job for a living is to inspect the beef marbling. And when she came to True North and she first tasted the food, she said, "Michelle, I can't do this. Like, this is horrendous. Plants, I hate vegetables." She was gagging. I looked at her and I said, "You can do this. Like, when you go on this fast, it'll reset your taste buds. The food might taste bland for a little bit, but trust me, it's gonna get better." And it did. At the end of it, she was eating the food happily. And I often tell people that the meat by itself doesn't taste that good. What tastes good on it is the plants we put on, like the barbecue sauce, and of course we put on the condiments, which make it extra addictive and hyper-palatable. But the meat itself, no, it's not actually that great. Meat actually has been bred to be much fattier than it used to be. Traditionally, meat was much more lean. Now it's like over 50% fat, and that's part by design, because they're trying to hook us in.
Yeah, and when you say hyper-palatable, Chris with Plant Choppers, he has like an episode where he talks about that a little bit, about fat and salt being the most hyperpalatable foods. At first I assumed, just with that word hyperpalatable, that anything that you put in your mouth that tastes good, like sugar, but it seems that salt and fat are the most hyperpalatable. At True North, do you find that pretty much everybody goes through this, oh, I hate plants, and then they got to reset, and then eventually they acclimate? Does everybody kind of go through that USDA inspector's phase?
Yes, they do. Yeah. They do. Dr. Goldhammer often refers to it as neuroadaptation. So he and Dr. Lyle have co-written this book called The Pleasure Trap, which explains how we humans are energy conservation, pleasure-seeking, pain-avoiding machines. The Pleasure Trap also talks about how we are addicted to foods with combinations of salt, oil, and sugar that makes them hyperpalatable. Yes, so a lot of people come into True North and they think the food is the most bland cardboard they've tasted in their life. During the fast, their taste buds are finally free of the salt, oil, and sugar and hyperpalatable combinations that we constantly assault them with over 3 times a day. And by the end of it, when they break their fast, stay on just steamed zucchini, it tastes like dessert. You will see them eating it like dessert, and they can smell it from a mile away, and they're savoring it. Just a leaf of iceberg lettuce is so delicious. I see this again and again in patients. Their taste buds have finally reset, and they can finally taste flavor for the first time. People don't realize this, but when we eat oil, for instance, it coats our tongues with fat, and it makes it harder for flavors to seep through. And that's why if we add oil, we need to add more salt to add more flavor. And it's just this noxious combination. Neuroadaptation is when we start to perceive flavors and tastes more normally. Before, we're being hyperstimulated all the time. It's like, say, someone being on caffeine. They're relying on 6 cups a day just to function. When you taper off that, you might go through a little withdrawal. Life might seem bland and hard. But then eventually, just 1 cup of coffee or none might be enough to get you through the day.
Have you found a way to be active toward advocating this?
Absolutely. So my principle is that I don't tell anybody about the diet unless they ask. Because when they ask, that's when they're open. They've invited you into the door to talk about it. If they don't ask, I don't tell them about it. And I feel lucky at True North because these are already patients who are pre-selected, highly motivated people who are open to dietary change. So I'm lucky because I get to lecture to crowds of people who want to hear this information. I go for it, I give them it, versus if I'm in a typical gathering, and I even tell people this, do not just go around proselytizing about veganism, especially when someone's got meat on their fork. That's not the time to do it. Only do it when they ask. And again, we got to be the lighthouse. We don't want to be preachy because that repels people. What we want to do is show how amazing we are, just living our lives, and we're not trying to convince people to follow our ways. But when they see just how happy and healthy we are, they kind of start to follow.
What if somebody sits down in front of you, and you're out to dinner, whoever it might be, they say, is it okay with you if I order chicken?
That's fine. Go for it. I'm not going to open the conversation there because they're about to have a meal. And the point of the meal is not the food. The point of the meal is so we can share time together and talk about things. I'm a huge advocate of the quote, eat to live, don't live to eat. And I already talk about food as a profession. I don't want to talk about it even more.
One thing I like to share with people is, why are you asking me that? Because maybe that'll help them process what they're actually doing.
Why are you asking me that? I think, that's a therapist technique to reflect back on them. If for therapy, they teach us if the client is asking you a question which is perhaps about your own personal values, to ask them, like, why are you asking me that? So they reflect on themselves, like, why I need to ask this. I think that's a great question for redirection. I typically try to avoid asking why questions because within the why, there's inherent judgment. It's like, you need to give me a reason for this, why, it's questioning. But I think that's a fair thing to say to people.
I would love to see a way to kind of merge this lifestyle into the treatment plans. It sounds like you're going in that direction.
That's exactly it, yes. So my interest in mental health, again, was sparked through Dr. Doug Lyle and his approach to mental health. He specifically advocates using a combination of understanding of evolutionary psychology along with behavioral genetics, combined with his 40-plus years of clinical experience to help people truly overcome a wide array of mental issues, including food addiction. He's dealt with so many people with that, and he used to work at True North Health Center. So I feel called to that line of work because we kind of know what Michael Pollan said a long time ago, which is eat food, not too much, mainly plants. It's pretty common sense. Yet here we are, fat, sick, and miserable, a lot of us. So I try to bridge that disconnect and figure out where is that, how do we change modify their behaviors? That's what I'm truly interested in. Hence, I currently pursue a master's in counseling, and I study extensively the work of people like Dr. Doug Lisle, who I feel like have made positive change, or I should say I know that because of his vast success with clients. There is a paucity of information about mental health in our field, but that's being remedied by people like Adam Suds, who co-piloted a study called the Infinite Study, in which he showed that people overcoming addictions, like drug abuse, who go on a primarily plant-based diet have better outcomes than those who are eating the traditional diet served to them at addiction centers. So I think this kind of research is pioneering work, which shows that eating plants actually makes us not just physically healthier, but also mentally happier.
I really feel like it's a disservice to neglect the nutritional component.
Absolutely, especially for those at a rehab center being served hyper-palatable food, which is designed to addict you by the food scientists and companies. It seems almost
insane.
You're getting people off alcohol, and then yet you're getting them on pizza and soft drinks. It reflects a lack of true understanding about the gravity of the situation regarding food, because people don't realize that food nowadays is a drug. It has truly been manufactured into drugs which hook us. They also don't realize how mental health and physical health are not separate, they're intertwined. If someone's not able to get quality sleep, perhaps because they're not breathing correctly, perhaps because their lung conditions because of what they're eating, then they're not gonna feel so great. In my work as a person attempting to remedy mental health issues, I realize again and again, we have to go back to the 3 pillars of health Dr. Goldhammer talks about: diet, sleep, and exercise. You truly cannot have a well mind without those 3 pillars in place.
You're making me think of the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine.
Yes, by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. 6 pillars, 3 pillars, whatever it is, we know we need community. You could expand forever.
Yeah. What about depression? Some people say, oh, vegans are more depressed. Is that true? Is there anything out there about, or do you know anything about that?
If vegans are more depressed, maybe it's because they're more aware of how we're destroying the planet.
Yeah, no doubt. That's kind of my default thought too. But I don't know that there's any evidence of this. I think I feel happier than I've ever felt in my life.
That's my personal take. And having worked with over 1,000 patients at True North, I see a lot of them say how on their previous diet, they felt really sluggish and low on energy and more depressed. Versus now, when they're eating plants, they're actually able to incorporate more activities in their lives, spend more time with people. My friend Esther Loveridge, she went on the McDougall diet. She lost over 120 pounds, got off all her medications. Before she had made this change, she was a world traveler. She's been to over 84 countries, but her knees hurt so bad from all this excess weight she was carrying that the doctors were telling her she would need knee replacement surgery. And she had eye problems as well. But again, she went on the diet. That removed the knee pain. She avoided surgery. She also was on levothyroxine for a number of years for mental health, and she was able to get off that. Her mood stabilized, and now she's able to continue traveling the world like she loves to do. That is a kind of person whose whole mental landscape changed through becoming plant-based. And I see this with other people, like Adam Suds, for instance. He was morbidly obese, diabetes. He was suicidally depressed. It came to the point where he attempted to take his own life, and he attempted to, he failed. He woke up in his room in a puddle of his own vomit, surrounded by fast food, and he realized that his life had to change. That was Adam Suds' breaking point. And when he made that dietary change, his world expanded. He now has a beautiful wife. He loves being athletic. He has more connection in his life than ever before. And this all happened because he became physically well enough to actually leave his home, participate in activities. He's, to me, one of those lighthouses I try to follow.
Yeah. So I wonder, in such a dark world, how do you keep that light on?
You probably know this already because I study psychology. I think anybody who studies psychology does it because they have a dark mind. And I definitely do. I'm naturally very anxious and probably depressed, and I have chronic pain still. So it's very difficult. Every day I wake up, I have to tell myself, Michelle, you can do this. I have to psych myself up. I get through the day. And people see me and they think I'm this like super bright, cheery, healthy person. But that's actually like 50% of my brain is always dedicated to like managing the pain and trying to be okay. So this is something which is at the forefront of my mind. How do I stay happy despite adversity? What I personally have to do for my own sanity is to be very hyper selective about who I surround myself with. Hence, currently we're at the NHA conference, the National Health Association conference, where I'm with a group of people who I feel like are making strides in the world, positive changes. I associate with people like Chris McCaskill of Plant Shoppers, who is also spreading the good word about plants. This is my friend circle. This is my life. These are my connections. And if I have friends who are for some reason not okay with me being myself, then they're no longer my friend, and that's okay because we got billions of people in this world and limited time. So truly, I think of myself as a landscaper in my garden, and I am so selective about who I hang out with, including my workspace. I work at True North. I work there not just to advocate for the health of patients, but to help myself, because at True North, every day I wake up, I see these patients, and that's a powerful reminder to me that I'm making positive change in the world, and these patients also motivate me. Patients thank me, and I say, no, thank you for being an example to me. So I have to say, I have a lot of sources of positivity in my life because I've chosen to put myself in this environment. In the environments I worked at before, which were not so plant forward, I would be much more of a mess. I would be much more, trying to bite my tongue all the time and being a little meek and shy. But I was the one who said, no, I'm doing this work for my own health too. I want to be an advocate. I want to surround myself with people who are advocates. That is also for my own mental health, and that's how I stay generally happier.
Why do you think some people fail at this?
Because they don't have the support. Because they're living in areas where they don't have people who are eating this way. This is actually my chief concern at True North because we lack a program currently for patients who are departing to have continued support. I'm the person who's been advocating for that, and I'm building support groups, virtual support groups, for people who are leaving the middle of nowhere with no grocery store nearby in food deserts to be able to at least connect online with those who understand the way. I, for years, have been running my own online group, which is actually where I met my fiance, where people connect over this plant-based lifestyle as well. And we are around the world, around the globe, but we support each other. We chat daily and support each other, send food pictures. This is how we help each other. So I totally understand what it's like to be in a place which is not so plant-forward. I was just in New Zealand for 6 months, and it was much more difficult there than obviously the San Francisco Bay Area to eat this kind of way. It's a very cattle, dairy, heavy culture. And I found my source of strength in the online communities which I built. And I built those communities because they didn't exist before for people like me. And eating this way, I still feel loneliness because I'm 24. I'm quite young in this world. I have few peers my age who understand, especially in person. But through the online world, I've been able to meet more people my age and above and learn so much from them. I personally try always surrounding myself with people better than me. If I'm the smartest person in the room, I need to get out of that room. People often tell me I have an old soul, and I think it's only because I've always been associating with people decades older than me. So I'm just lucky because they've always imparted their lessons upon me. When I was growing up, actually, my first friend growing up, my closest online friend was someone who turned out to be 10 years older than me. I was 10 at the time and she was 20 in Canada. And we would exchange emails back and forth all the time. One day she said, oh, I'm heading out to California, we could actually meet up. And I said, sure. And then I mentioned to her the day before our meetup, by the way, I'm 10 years old. And then she said, what? Like, I thought I was talking to someone who's also 20 the whole time. And my whole life it's been like that. I'm so privileged in that I continually hang out with people who happen to let me pick their brains. I'm an interviewer too. I love to mine people for stories. With Chris McCaskill of Plant Shoppers, we interviewed someone who's about 100 years old. I love that. I love learning from people older and wiser because I feel that the saying that youth is wasted on the young is very true. When we're young, we have so much energy, vitality, opportunity, but we don't see the dragons lurking in the corner, which is aging and lifestyle diseases. So I'm a very, very lucky person to have stumbled upon this information thanks to people like VeganLinked who spread it to the world.
Thank you so much. Now, do you have a quote you want to share?
I like Adam Suds' quote. Adam Suds' classic quote he likes to share is that we shouldn't live as if we are living the last day of our life, but we should live as if the people we're interacting with are living the last day of theirs. That's very powerful because if we are trying to live as if we're living the last day of our life, well then, heck no, I'm not going to exercise, go to the gym. I would not do any of these health-promoting behaviors. So that's not a way to live, actually. It's not very sustainable. However, if we treat other people like they're living the last day of their lives, that changes how we treat them. We're going to be more patient with them. We're going to give them all the understanding. If they want to eat steak, we're not going to yell at them for that. We're going to treat them with compassion. I live with that quote every day, looking at everybody thinking, this might be their last day. Let's make it the best day ever.
Do you have like an online URL you want to share or social presence or anything like that?
Sure. So my name is Michelle Cen. It's Michelle with 2 L's and then C-E-N. My website is michellcen.com, where you can find a lot of my resources. I have my own YouTube channel under the same name where I interview people and also share more about my life. On Instagram, you're going to find videos of me spinning up in the air, being an acrobat, because that's one of the things I like to do. Because again, life is not just food. Food is fuel for our bodies to do the things we want them to do. I tell people the analogy of we are vehicles. Like Warren Buffett talks about how we are like one Ferrari. You get one car your whole life. Can't change it, that's your body, and you gotta put in the best fuel for it to go to places. And I also tell them the quote how the point of life is not to go from gas station to gas station, aka eat food, just to eat food again. The point of life is to go to the gas stations to get to your destination. So I always ask people, what's your why? Why are you doing this? Why are you choosing to eat healthy? Their why might be their kids, their family, their honor to their body. There are so many whys out there, and for anybody struggling to stay on the healthy way, I ask them just, why are you doing this?
You're just a gold mine of awesome stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love it. So I'm glad I got to do this.
Thank you.
Just stumbled on you in the hallway, and here we are.
Yeah, you stumbled in the hallway in the National Health Association, asked who you are. It's VeganLinked, and sat down. I just led a hike for the National Health Association, so just brought a group of people around the longest hike that we have. I'm back here feeling so happy, the nature, the forest bathing. I'm so energized. I'm about to enjoy a beautiful lunch with more like-minded people. Life could not be any better.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, and I guess we'll call it a wrap.
Thank you. Sweet.